We lost 2,461 Americans, including the 13 that were killed, all of which, each and every one of them breaks my heart. But I know I had difficulty in talking to some, even before the evacuation, as to what are we doing there? And ultimately, the president had to make a decision. Either we stay, as the prior administrations had to make a decision. President Trump, President Obama, these other they had to make a decision. Do we escalate or do we not? And that's something that a commander-in-chief has to decide. But I guess each of us may have our own personal opinions. What's yours?
I appreciate the opportunity to answer that question, Ranking Member Meeks, and I would just say, like Pete, I'm not a policy guy, but what I will say is, as a career Special Forces officer who spent a good amount of time in Afghanistan helping to build capacity for the Afghan security forces to be an antibody to violent extremist groups so that we didn't have to do it. That was, for the Special Forces, the community, that was something very near and dear to our hearts, especially when what happened on 9/11 pointed so directly to the absence of a ground intelligence capability and a viable partner force. And so we fought and we bled for 20 years to build an Afghan Special Operations Forces capacity. And while I know the meta-narrative is that the security forces withdrew, didn't fight, the reality is the Afghan Special Ops did 95% of the fighting and fought to the very end. Most of them ran out of bullets. Many of them were overrun. And so my point on that is I believe that could have been a responsible antibody to violent extremist groups with a small footprint that do advise and assist. And I believe that we could have maintained that. But instead, we allowed the contract air to go away and all of the maintenance. They were left without any air support, any medevac, and they were not able to do what special operators are great at doing. So I believe that they could have stayed in an advisory capacity. And now what we're left with is 27 violent extremist groups on the rise, unfettered safe haven, and only the National Resistance Front as the antibody to it and nothing else.